Hello and welcome. Thanks for tuning in to Armstrong Channel 20 and 100. I'm Miss Chrissy and I'll be your host for this edition of Kids Corner. Today we are actually inspired by the pure fascination of science and all that it has. Today we will be talking about the Moonday and all the fun that the moon provides for us. This book is by Adam Rex and it was picked up by the local library. In our craft, it's going to be very exciting. We're actually going to be demonstrating what it is of the texture of moon sand itself. And we're going to be cutting out just a plain white circle. You can use any recycled material whatsoever you have in your house. Computer printer paper, old Christmas cards that perhaps you can cut up, or holiday cards. And then I went online and I actually printed off this diagram of all the moon phases. And we went ahead and cut that out and put it on this piece of paper, and there you go. You have a very easy and fun, stimulating craft that the kids will take forth. So how many of you were late night owls last night? Were any of you up very, very late? A few of you?
But I always stay up late, like till 9 or 10.
Sorry to hear that. How about, were any of you up really, really early with the birds? Did you hear any birds this morning chirping? Did you notice if there was a moon in the evening when you were going to eat your supper? Did you notice if the moon, the same moon, was out when you were up brushing your teeth right before you went to bed?
Yes.
Did you notice this morning if the moon was still out? It is, isn't it? It is out all the time. The moon is constantly in orbit. It goes around and around. Do you know that the moon's atmosphere is not like Earth's? You know that, right?
Because there's no gravity.
There is no atmosphere. Very key word, very smart young man and young lady. So there's no wind, right? And water was just discovered on the moon in 2009. They just discovered water on the moon. Yes, sir?
How could they discover our moon if there's no water in space?
Well, each planet in our solar system is different. Although, is the moon a planet?
No.
It's not, is it? How about, does someone know by a raise of hands if the moon actually illuminates its own light? Go ahead, young lady.
Yeah.
It does not. Where does the light come from?
The reflection of the sun.
Very good. It does come from the reflection of the sun. Awesome answers. You guys must have some really amazing teachers here, do you think?
Yeah.
Awesome. Can somebody give me a fact that maybe Miss Chrissy did not tell you about the moon? Yes, young lady.
Did you know there was an eclipse last night?
Last night there was. I did not know there was an eclipse last night. Very neat. Young man in the red shirt, how about you?
If the moon doesn't spin, then why doesn't it fall out of the sky?
That is a great question. Do you think that one day you'll become a scientist? Perhaps you can, and you can do a study on it of where it came from. Yes, sir.
Since there's no air when in the in space, when we go up, we have to wear spacesuits, because if we don't, we have to breathe air.
We do. One of Miss Chrissy's very favorite things, of the reasons I would love to go on a rocket ship and go into outer space and visit the moon, is because I would love to float. How cool would that be? Just be like a bouncing bubble around, right? You just float around. Yes, sir.
Like when you walk the moon, like people say that the moon follows you, but it's actually not.
That's right. That's right. It is constantly moving in orbit, right? Orbit means it's constantly spinning, and our Earth is constantly spinning. You would think we would be dizzy during the day. We'd be constantly spinning, and the moon is constantly spinning around us and the sun. It's just out there in outer space. Yes, sir.
I know how the moon got made.
You do?
It's a giant meteor.
It also has something, big pits in it. Does someone know what the big pit, someone maybe that hasn't answered this morning? Yes, sir.
A crater.
It is a crater. Where do the craters come from? Can we know that? Can we let somebody else answer that maybe hasn't answered yet today? Who has not answered? Have you answered, young lady in the white shirt? You have answered? Who has not answered? Have you not answered? Okay. Where does a crater come from?
Like, if another asteroid hits the moon. And I know one planet made of water.
You do? That's awesome. But you are correct. When we talk about a crater, we're talking about the big words again. So we're talking about so many of the scientific names, aren't we? Crater, asteroid, solar system, eclipse, I heard, a lunar moon. Has anybody heard of a lunar moon? Yeah. So we're gonna get ready and we're gonna be reading our book today. It's called Moonday and it's by Adam Rex. Actually, the first man that was on the moon, the very first man that was on the moon was, who's his fancy name? Yes. It was John Armstrong. Do you know that you can still, because of what this young man said, you can still see the footprint from his boot? It's still there. It will be there for something like over 10, I think it's 10 million years, and maybe 1,000. Miss Chrissy forgets when I was reading about it, but it will be there for a very long time, longer than any one of ours in this room lifetime. That's how long it'll be. So today we're gonna read Moonday, and it's by Adam Rex. The moon hung full and low and touched the tip of the trees. We whispered words like big and beautiful. Through the backseat window, I followed its flight, past the dark, sleeping park and the bright, empty streets. Then I drifted to sleep and was lifted to bed. The next morning, the moon was lower and larger and very near. It was very nearly on the ground. It was in our backyard. I asked, why is it so large and low? Why is it in our backyard? Dad says, and he rubbed his chin, thinking. Pick me up, the boy said. From Dad's shoulders, I brushed the moon with my fingertips, and it was chalky and it was cold. I climbed into a crater. I'm going to have a look around. Mom says, okay, but zip up your coat. Does that sound like some of your moms? Zip up your coat. Maybe some of your dads, brothers, sisters? I know I would say that. I walked over and under and around to where Mom and Dad waited. Now what? Morning had missed us, and in the darkness, the town awoke and went to work. At school, we slumped in our desks and slept through lunch. I looked through my heavy lashes, through the window, through the lean trees, to see my blue moon staring back at me. In science, Miss Ellen wrote, the moon has gravity that makes the tides turn. In English, she wrote, the moon is a noun and sometimes a verb. In math, she wrote, 1 + 1 = the moon. And then she blinked and stepped back from the board. That's not right, she said. I'm sleepy. Class dismissed. As I walked, I watched the weary town folk. Hushed, they shuffled through the slush and dozed off at the streetlights. The band on Bleecker Street could only sight into the microphone. Lalaboo, I love you, shashaloo, lalaboo. Then I started a yawn. I bet a lot of you were doing that this morning, right? We were yawning. That swayed up the block, crossed 2 policemen in my backyard. And Mom and Dad tried to hide the moon under the blanket and tablecloths. Hot air balloon? Yawned our neighbor as he leaned over the fence. Yes, I guess, said Mom. It's the latest fad, said Dad. That was when the tide came in. It trickled into our backyards. The tide came in smooth and thin and settled underneath our moon. Can you see the tide down there? The tide came in. Big, I said, and beautiful. Wet, said Dad. It doesn't belong in our backyard, said Mom. And I could do without the dogs. I said, maybe we should take it for a drive. So we drove with the moon in our window that night, through the bright, empty streets, past the dark, sleeping park. It followed our flight to the top of the hill, where it lit on the tips of the tree. Then I told the moon, stay. I told the moon, stay, as we rumbled away. And it stayed in the sky at the top of the hill and looked smaller and higher and the lower we drove. There it goes, I said. There goes the moon, said Dad. There goes our good tablecloth, said Mom. And then the purring car, I fell asleep. Dad carried me to bed, saying goodnight. In other towns and neighbors' beds, they said goodnight and turned off the light, and it was good night. So we heard a lot of our words. The one word that we didn't really talk about is when the moon starts turning, right? We heard the word tide, and I heard some chitter chatter that maybe we were trying to figure out what the tide was. So let's look in the book and let's see what the tide is. Oh, I turned right to it. Lucky charm, look at that. The tide here. Tides come in from some of our biggest parts of the earth, which are from our waters and our oceans, right? Is that where when you guys were figuring out, the ones that were trying to figure out what the tide was, I heard water. Yes? And then you realize the tides, yes, they roll in, don't they? Sometimes there's high tide, and sometimes there's low tide. Have you ever been to the ocean, by a show of hands? Have you ever been to the lake? Do the lake and the ocean have different tides? They do, don't they? Very good. Some of you have papers in front of you. What I'd like you to do is I would like you to pass first. Who's got their listening ears on? I see good listening ears today. First I'd like you to do is I'd like you to pass out the white piece of paper, and it has, it has the sun on it. So we're gonna pass it around and we're gonna make sure all our friends actually have one. So this is the piece of paper that we have. This piece of paper is going to be glued down on the next piece of paper. Once our friends get all this piece of paper, we're gonna get this around, and then we're going to use our scissors, and we're just gonna clip out the top portion of this. There are different phases of the moon. Have we talked about this in some of our really brilliant teachers' classes? This is what this picture shows. It shows the different phases. There's a whole science in itself with our glorious moon. The first moon, if you take a look at it, it has no color in it whatsoever. It's called a new moon. The very first one on top. It's called a new moon. Then, let's pretend like it's 6 o'clock. on our clock. If it's all showing, the moon is all showing, bright and luminous, what would that moon be called? Yes, it is a full moon, very good. And how about the moon that's just got a wee little bit showing? Does anybody know what that moon would be called? It's kind of like a bread roll that you eat. It is a crescent. Yes, it is. Thank you, friends, for being patient as well. So is this moon maybe on the other side called a crescent too? Have you seen one of these before? Some of you have, some of you haven't. So this is the new moon way on the top. That means there's hardly any moon showing at all. If you really look when there's a new moon, you have to be on a really crisp night. There almost has to be no light pollution out whatsoever. And you can actually see just the outline brim of the moon, just barely. But it has to be almost no clouds out and no light pollution. Light pollution means you can't be in the middle of Walmart's parking lot or a supermarket and looking for the moon, because those big lights would cast out the luminous of the moon, right? Does that make sense? And once you get the construction paper, we'll go ahead and take the glue, and you can just put 4 little dots on each corner and turn it over and glue it down so you have this. So this is Cheyenne's demonstration. So she's got it cut out in our rectangle, glued down with our moon phases on our construction paper. Once you have this done, you can go ahead and flip it over. And that is where you're going to put our white circle. You can put your white circle down on this side. So we have our moon phases on one side, and when you flip it over, you're gonna see that it's the actual moon on this side. And you wanna have our circle side up. Now, if this was a 3D circle side up, what would it be called? 3D circle, a sphere, very good. So the Earth is a sphere, the moon is a sphere, and we are going to mimic, there's a big word again, what the texture of moon is actually like. So Miss Chrissy's gonna come around, and once I see your hands are free, I'm going to give you a scoop of moon sand. Now, once you get your moon sand, you may discuss with your friends right beside you what it feels like. In the book, we talked about that the moon was cold. It can feel soft and warm. What's happening then? When it first hits your hand, it probably felt cold and chalky. Feeling this, when you first felt it, Did it feel cold and chalky? Some of you say yes, some of you say no. What happens when you continue to touch this? Is your body temperature heating it up? Is it? So you're able to squeeze it really tight. Can you try to roll it into a ball? What happens when you try to roll it into a sphere? It squishes, doesn't it? How about if you squeeze it real tight? Can you squeeze it real tight to turn it into a ball? Is this a solid or a liquid? Is this a solid or a liquid? Let's think about it. It is a solid. It's a solid because look, it's not oozing through Miss Chrissy's hands, not whatsoever. Now, if Miss Chrissy grabbed the glue and I put it through my hands, what would happen? It would stick, but would it drop through my fingers? Let's see. It's dripping through my fingers. Look at that. What kind of moon did we make today in art class? In the phase? A full moon, right? The full moon is what we made in this class. When you take it home, I want you to see if you would be daring enough to put your footprint on it. And actually see what happens when you put a footprint on it. Do you think that it'll take the texture to the bottom of your foot and put that stamp on that, just like Armstrong did when Mr. Armstrong went on the moon, right? Neil's footprint is still up there. If you actually go and you get a satellite view of the moon, you guys can actually see that. Had a great day today at Austintown Intermediate School here with some really fantastic students. We read The Moonday for our book, was picked up of our local library, and these gentlemen did some fabulous crafts today talking about the moon and the craters and the atmosphere. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.